Lisa Heffernan, I'm so excited to have you here. The half of Grown and Flown. I was gonna say I can't say the better half because they're both great halves, right?
Well, very nice of you to say. I don't know if I'm grown or I'm flown, but yes, I am one half of the founding pair.
Right, because
And I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
oh, it's great. Well, I've had the chance to chat with Mary Dell a lot, and with you, I've chatted some, and I'm just so excited because I am like an Uber fan. I am such a fan of Grown and Flown. I love Grown and Flown. You know how much I love Grown and Flown, right?
I do. And it's a two-way street because we tell all of our graduating seniors, parents of high school graduating seniors, to buy Naked Roommate. It is like the gift, the high school graduation gift that we suggest for everybody. So this love affair goes both ways.
Well, that is so kind. And I've always looked to Grown and Flown as a community that I aspire to create. And it's the feel. For those of you who are not familiar with Grown and Flown, well, you know what, Lisa, you're here. So why don't you use your words instead of me using my definition? So how would you
Okay.
describe Grown and Flown?
So it started as a website to speak to the issues of our kids going through teenage years, leaving home for whatever they're leaving home for, if they're going to military or work or further on in their education, because there really wasn't much on the internet for parents of 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. The internet was full of information about, our under fives or our under eights. As if somehow these latter years of parenting were easier. And anyone who's been through them knows that they are perhaps harder and certainly scarier than those early years. So initially, we were a website. We have 900 writers on the website so that we can bring a huge diversity of experience, of expertise. Some of our writers are, physicians or educators or psychologists, and many of them are parents just writing from their own perspective and their own experience about parenting through this period in time. And then we became a Facebook group, and that sort of took on a life of its own because over there we have 280,000 parents discussing every aspect from the most mundane, do these shoes match the prom dress sort of thing, to, my kid just got a DUI and is in jail. And has anyone else had an experience like this? Because I'm scared out of my mind. So we really are over there discussing everything. If I could say one thing about the group, particularly in this moment in time that we're all living in America, we have tried so hard to make this group apolitical. We have tried so hard to make it a place where parents remember that we have something that matters to us more than anything and that we share that thing. And that there are things, basic things where we do see eye to eye, and that is caring for our kids and for our teenagers and for our young adults. So we've tried something there that brings people together, and I hope that we continue to be able to do it.
So the love that we share for our children, the love that we share for each other, and for any of the students who are listening, the love that your parents have for you and you have for them, that's the common bond. And it's really hard to keep Grown and Flown a place where people don't get heated. Like, how are you able to keep people from being just, I would say, oppositional, or maybe not oppositional, it's more
Divisive?
yeah, I mean, people get angry and upset. So, I mean,
They do.
how
They
do
do.
you keep it safe, or how do you keep it less hostile?
We have a lot of moderators because it's 280,000 people. So, and we don't allow discussions of political things, overtly political topics, though one could argue that politics permeates our lives, but overtly political topics. And we just insist on people being supportive. And we take people out and delete comments and things where people aren't supportive. And what we find is all over the country, parents are there for each other, for each other's kids. So this is a point in life where our kids may be geographically separated from us. And things happen that they may not be prepared to deal with, or maybe unexpected. Illness, injury, whatever. And our parents literally support each other by helping each other's kids all over the country.
Yeah.
You can come in and say, I'm in Pennsylvania, my kid's in Texas, we've got a problem, they're in the ER. And there will be a parent who will say, I can go there for you, just let me know where.
One of my favorite threads was someone who was in Alaska, and the student got sick in Alaska, and it's not easy to get to Alaska. I don't know if you remember that one or saw that one.
Dude, the kid needed to go to the pharmacy and didn't have a car. And the mom came in and said, I know this is kind of a long shot, small town in Alaska. And one of the moms said, yeah, I live here. I'll go grab him. I'll take him to CVS. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the time.
That's the thing that's amazing. And when sharing the framework of people, places, patience, it's kind of my MO when it comes to transition and change. It's who are your people, where are your places, how long will it take for you to get where you want to go? And for parents and supporters, Grown and Flown is one of the communities that I always mention whenever I do live events. I don't even know if you know this. I put a big slide up and I say, you need to go to Grown and Flown, because when you have a problem, when you feel alone, when you are nervous and afraid, this community has people who have been there and done it, who can support you and comfort you. And they're not just going to tell you what you want to hear, right? Like there's a foundation of love and understanding. They're going to tell you what you need to hear, even if it's not what you want to hear. Would you agree with that?
I would. And a lot of it is super, super constructive information that you may not have because you're just entering whatever situation you're in. Sometimes it's a different point of view. Have you considered, I look at this differently. This is how I think about it. So many of the things that we go through in our real world lives, we don't know anyone else going through the same thing. Let's just use that example I used of a DUI, or a child's cheated in college and gotten caught, or cheated in high school and gotten caught. You might not know anybody going through that exact thing, of anything in your life, the good things and the bad things. But when you walk into a community of 280,000 people, you will find dozens and dozens of parents who have walked the exact road you're walking. I always say that our lives are really different, but our problems are really the same.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, and particularly when parents come to us and they're at the beginning of a situation, something about their life is changing, something about the relationship with their child is changing, something happened to their child. They're in a little state of crisis and they don't know where to turn. And when other parents can say, here's a group, here's a website, here's some books, here's some information, so helpful.
Yeah. The community piece is it's so important. And I think being a parent, I have 3 teenagers. So I have a soon to be 18-year-old who's a senior, and I have a 15-year-old sophomore in high school, and I have a 5th grader. So I'd say
put in each camp.
Oh yeah. And I think being a parent of a teenager is the hardest, loneliest job of that I've ever. I mean, lonely in the sense of I'm married and I love my wife and we have a good relationship, a great relationship, but lonely in the sense of not always knowing, and having this uncertainty and flying by the seat of your pants, hoping you're making the best choices, and having someone who has autonomy a lot of times and agency and their own thoughts and feelings that are incredibly inconvenient. And the stakes can sometimes be very high, extremely high. How do you feel about just validating how hard it is and how unprepared I think most adults are to deal with this?
Yes. And that's where community really helps, because when you hear tens of thousands of other people talk about having the same feelings of being lost or being scared that you have, you feel less lost and you feel less scared. One of the problems I think we have is that when we have a problem in general in life, you try and, we're adults, we've been adults for a long time. We go back to whatever experiences we have that will help us and be relevant. And what did we do in a previous situation, or what did somebody else do? We call on our experience. That's what you do. The problem with our teenagers is they're not us. So, they're, as you said, they're not even each other. I have 3 also. What I did with one, if I tried to do with the other, was often a mistake. Even when I did work with the eldest, by the time I got to the second, it was a problem. So they're not us. So we can't use our own world experience. And the world they're living in is not the world we lived in. So when we hearken back to what it felt like to be 17, their experience of 17 and our experience of 17 are just unrelated. So all of the things where we try and use our experience to bring to tough decision making, we're unable to do that.
Yeah. I find the one common thread is rejection. And that's where I've honed in. My thing is I'm great at rejection, getting rejected, tolerating rejection, working through rejection, which ultimately helps me to be successful. But the thing that I've become great at doing is help other people to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And really that's rejection in a sense of my kids not listening to me. I'm not getting the same love and affirmation. They're not finding their group and connection. They're searching for their way. They need to love themselves. They're struggling with who they are. And at the core, and this is how I connect with younger people and how I connect with people of any age, it's this common theme of, regardless of the electronics or the internet or all those other aspects, at the core, it's the sense of wanting to feel like we belong and that we're enough. And it's really the opposite of rejection, which is love, unconditional love.
Yeah. Yeah. You speak so often and so eloquently about the going to college experience, and there are so many moments of rejection in that experience. You're homesick, so, you don't feel like you're connecting with the place that you are. Often kids find that their time management skills aren't great, so they're not really finding their footing. So what they thought was successful isn't successful, so they feel really bad about themselves in an academic sense, even though they can do the work and it's not a problem. The roommate situation, the groups, the activities, some of these colleges you go to and you have to try out for activities.
Yeah, to me, that is like, people don't, it's the worst. You work so hard to get to a place that's so hard to get into, and then you have to work so hard to get into places where you can be accepted, included, and be part of a community. It's like, people don't get that.
The worst part of it, one of my kids went to a school where there was a lot of this. The worst part of it is you end up in college doing the things that you were already good at, because those are the things where you can get in. So if you were already a good volleyball player, you can make, the club volleyball team.
Yeah.
But you don't get to try the things that you never did before that are new experiences, because you're not good at them. And when you tried out, you didn't do well. But the whole point was to go to college and try these new things. And now you have that opportunity taken away from you. It's a problem.
Yeah. You've been doing this for how many years now?
We've been doing it for 11 years.
11 years, which you get to see trends and patterns. And I've been writing advice. I was writing my advice column for 20 years. And so since I was in college, and then I've been doing this for over 25, and been visiting campuses and spotting trends and seeing the parent relationship, the student relationship. But I would love to do a speed round of the things that you see, the trends that you've spotted. And let's bring it into the college piece, because I know that's where, and I love what you're saying about college, because, my kind of secret is, I don't really, I help with college, but more than anything, I'm helping with the social, emotional, physical, financial, and academic changes, which are the 5 big changes that are part of life for teenagers that all happen at once. And it happens a lot of times for the majority of students in a college campus in that environment. But the changes and transitions and the life skills we need to learn in order to navigate these changes are relevant to our whole life. And those are things that many parents find themselves struggling with, because we have so little control when it comes to 18 on. And you're in a place where you see these patterns and changes. So I want to hit 2 things. One is the college trends you see and changes, and then some of the issues that come up again and again with the parents of the community, their own inner struggles. So let's focus on the college transition piece, those trends that are going to come up again and again and again. And even if you can add some, I know you have opinions. I don't know how often you express your opinions, but I would love, I'll ask you about some of the things you mentioned as well, because I want to get your opinion. So
okay,
I gave you a lot of instructions. That was the word.
That's okay. That's okay. You just want me to talk about some of the trends I'm seeing in parents in the transition to college.
Yeah. Just run down the list, because the utility of this is, if a parent listens and they're like, oh, that's normal, I thought this was just my kid, or, what are just some of the things that again and again and again surprise parents, but they're just part of the normal transition?
Yeah. I think the first big one, and I know you touch on this all the time, is the mental health piece. In the last 5 years, we have seen parents go from, just telling their kids to go find a psychologist on campus, deal with it. You're in college, it's expensive, suck it up, to really deeply concerned and realizing parents have a role in helping their kids when they're struggling with either the homesickness piece or the mental health piece. We've seen a lot more kindness, concern, making everybody know that it's okay, that it's typical. Homesickness, and let me just quote a quick fact, because this isn't going as fast as you want, I'm afraid. UCLA has been studying freshmen for the last 50 years, and they do every year, they survey the freshman class, and they found that 72% of students say they're either occasionally or often homesick. So it's called the HERO, I think. You can buy, if you go online and you search UCLA freshman survey, they've been doing this for 50
I know
years.
it's HERI, the Higher Education Research.
Exactly.
They've been,
exactly.
I love that data. And I didn't know that there was a time where I was friends with John Pryor, who was like one of the lead researchers, and then he left, but I have to check because I'm doing Naked Roommate updates too. So I'm like,
it's a great place for data.
Yeah. That and the I don't mean to interrupt you, but I did mean to interrupt you. It was totally intentional. There's also the American ACHA, the American College Health Association, and NCHA have awesome data. But please continue with this homesickness data. Three-quarters of students.
Three-quarters of students feel homesickness, either somewhat, some of the time, or often. So when parents begin to realize that kids are going through this, they're much more understanding. It's not just my kid. There's not a problem here. There's not a solution we need to get through. We're going to, the kid is going to be able to work through this, and I will be there to support them and to listen to them and to help them as needed. So I think particularly once we went into the pandemic, there's just been a lot more concern with parents around that piece and being supportive of that piece. In terms of going to college, the focus on finances has only increased because the expenses only increase. And parents, when we talk to parents, and we talk to parents about college admissions all the time, because we also have a membership around college admissions, they really want to find a college that they and their kid can afford. The notion of getting a college, we've just read too many headlines about debt that kids can't get out of. And that is now something from the high school point on, parents do not want for their children. Whereas there was this feeling, I think 8 or 10 years ago, get into the best school you can get into and we'll figure it out. Now there's a feeling like, get into the best school you can get into that our family can comfortably afford, and you can come out and not have this hanging over your head. Nobody wants their kids into that kind of pressure now, the way they once did. So I think that's a huge change that we've seen over the period of time. I think one of the things that we've also seen a lot of is people getting a little savvier about social media. Social media 10 years ago really, really weighed on college kids. They used to go to college, they'd see other kids having great times. They assumed they were the only people who didn't have friends and didn't love their roommates. And I think parents and kids who are 18 years old are savvier about this now, and they're less affected by it in a negative way. I think younger teens are still really painfully impacted by this. I think for a 12 or 13-year-old, this can be excruciating. But I think older kids, because they've been in social media all their lives now, as opposed to the kids 10 years ago for whom it started maybe when they were in high school, they're a little bit more understanding about the fact that that is not real life. You're looking at someone else's highlight reel. And I think people can be a little bit more discerning about that. What else can I tell you has changed? For a period of time, we saw parents not wanting kids to go too far away because they had to come home so quickly. That seems to be disappearing. That, I think, turned out to be a very short-lived thing. Parents are super, super concerned now about their students knowing what they want to do before they go into college, knowing what they want to major in, knowing what they want to study. This is a really difficult burden to put on an 18-year-old. We try over and over again to tell parents that the kids don't need this, that close to 80%, you probably know this, of kids change their majors. Mm-hmm. So asking a kid to know that, but I know economic uncertainty makes parents want this, and I 100% understand why. It's absolutely rational, but it's often hard for a kid to do, particularly since so many of the things that are available to them in high school weren't available to them in college. So how would they even know? You couldn't have been an anthropology major in high school because it didn't exist. And now you come to college and this now exists. So how would you have known? So it's a little bit of a conflict we see between teens and young and their parents at the point of application. Some of the things that we're seeing.
Yeah, those are great. I mean, I really respect your point of view because you're constantly monitoring the different groups and also the stories. And I think that's also an interesting piece is these stories repeat themselves again and again and again. And for me, what I've seen are, you know, loneliness. And if we could do more, I know we're going to do some more, and I'm excited to do more with Grown and Flown, but the loneliness piece, like like the way I describe it is pick a school where you can be really happy being lonely.
Yeah.
Because people don't understand that you can be happy at a place and feel lonely, that the two are compatible. And I think that a lot of students don't know how to be on their own. They don't know how to be lonely without panicking. And I've been really trying to extend this timeline so that when a student gets to school and they're 3 weeks in or they're 8 weeks in and they say, I haven't really found my people. I don't have those close friends, which number one for me, what I'm getting is, and I get the students, I get more students writing to me than ever before. I don't know if you've seen what's been going on my Instagram. Um,
Yeah.
it's wild. I mean, it's been wonderful. I've been doing this forever. So and I finally got the courage to offer advice every day because it's so scary. You
Yeah.
say stuff and then people say stuff and you got to keep saying stuff and listening to stuff and people are mean. And I'm Jewish. So I get like anti-Semitic stuff all the time now. Just
Definitely.
posting stuff. People are like, hey, you look like a Jew. I'm like, you're very good. A friendly Jew. It's like, I don't know. What do you want from that? I just want you to be happy and live a life. So anyway, yeah.
So one of the things that kids get told so often, it's the best 4 years of your life. I think we should talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
We have put a lot of content on our website talking about how this is not the best 4 years of life. First of all, how sad if life went downhill from 22. Like,
Oh my God.
that's really sad if the best years are behind you. One of my kids called it the best 3.5 years of your life because he said, and I think this was a little bit of wisdom from an oldest child. He said, I just left my brothers who, I've been around most of my life. I've left my parents. I've left everyone I have ever known that I've ever grown up with in my entire life. I've left my dog, who I love, and I've gone to a place where I know one person. How could that possibly be the best experience of my life? What about that? Leaving this world in which I was loved and known, how can that be the best? So we try really hard. We have a lot of content on the website, and we've got this great video that a girl at Cornell did a couple of years ago, and we have parents writing about it all the time. Do not set your kids up with that. That is just too high of a bar. They may love some part of college. They may love some year of college. They may love 3 years of it if you're lucky. But when you go in with that expectation, to your point, when you come in and you're 6 weeks in and you don't have your best friends, you feel like something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. How would you have them already?
Right.
So it's super important to give kids that message.
Absolutely. And I've been, I drill that again and again and again, that it's uncomfortable, change is uncomfortable. And it takes a good year, at least a good year, to really figure out who do you want to be around? Where do you want to spend your time? What do you like? And also a big focus on wanting. I find that a lot of students are not great at exercising their want muscle. This idea of a parent saying, we want you to know what you want, when a student has had so little time to ask themselves the question, what do I want? And freely take risks, because the other part is, if you go after what you want or you experiment and you get a grade that isn't an A or maybe isn't a B, then there's this sense of panic that now you're not going to be able to go to whatever school, or you're not going to get the merit aid that we need. So there isn't a lot of room to experiment, and parents have these expectations that you're supposed to know, but there isn't that room. And that's, one of the things about, I have a letter someone wrote to me. I gotta answer this one. I've got a lot of messages. This one is the student who is an engineer and hates engineering. Her parents want her to be an engineer. She really wants to be a teacher, but she's afraid she won't be able to make money. And I have to respond to her, and the answer is to be a teacher, and be a teacher who finds other ways to make money. additional ways. We live in a world where information can be monetized, where she could do a course on how to be a great, how not to be an engineer and how to pick the best major. Or there are so many ways, and who even knows what jobs will be like and how many years she'll want to teach. She might teach for 3 years and realize, you know what, I don't want to teach in a school system. I want to teach at at one of the leading engineering firms and be a teacher who can do continuing ed within that environment. So there's I'm a big believer in experiment and experience, and you'll be able to do that. Lisa, let's just really address this. The expensive schools, the value. So here, I'll throw this at you because we'll talk about the admissions group too. If you have a student who gets into a in-state school and they get into that highly selective out-of-state or private school, and the difference is $40,000 a year, and the family doesn't have an extra $40,000, that $40,000 means something. At the end of that 4 years, that $160,000 for that out-of-state school versus that in-state school, what are your thoughts about that decision?
Okay. So I am in no way a college expert. So I want to preface everything I'm going to say.
Oh, you are.
That.
I
am not. I am not.
I think you are such an expert.
So I don't have an answer, but I have some really hopefully good questions. One is make sure the difference is 40,000, because as the expert that we use often in our Facebook, in our college admissions membership talks about is do not look at the sticker price. That is not your price. So many times a student will actually pay less at a private school than a public school because the private schools have resources. So first of all, don't assume when you look at these two things on the website that you're looking at the prices, because you're not. So parents should explore that. And actually, we're doing a session tonight. Parents can reach out to the financial aid office. This is the one place where colleges don't really mind talking to parents. They don't want to deal with parents most of the time, but around the paying for college piece, because it is so complex and it is so much money and it is so above the pay grade of most 17-year-olds, they will talk to you. So first of all, explore every avenue and make sure that the prices that you're looking at are what you're actually going to pay. So that's it. So when you find out that they're 40,000, I think there's a couple of things we have to think about. One, some kids really do know what they want to study. They really do. And is one school markedly better in what the kid wants to study than another? Does one have just a small program and is another one known all over the country? It may be that your state university is known to have the best program in X. So why would you go to a private college when, your state university is considered, has a deep program with lots of students and lots of courses and lots of faculty, and will really give your kid that option. If your kid doesn't know what they want to do, which I think is most kids, a large school has huge advantages, which is they have a lot of things to choose from. So there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of different majors, but check how hard it is to get into those majors, because sometimes in large state universities, majors are closed before you even get in. So for an undecided student, a large public university may be a perfect place to go because they can experiment with lots of different things and pick a major when they didn't know what they were going to do.
Yeah.
A third thing I think that makes a really, really big difference is what the kid's going to study if they know. Because if your kid is going into medicine or banking, a certain amount of debt might be quite manageable. Those are professions that pay a lot of money. Engineering pays a lot of money. Let's just use your example you just used. If you know your student is going to study engineering and they're pretty sure and you're pretty sure, some amount of debt may be comfortable for them. If your kid wants to go into education, the same amount of debt may be unmanageable. So it depends a little bit about what their track is, how much debt that they can take on. That's I think it's a super relevant factor. Yeah. And you may know some of that in advance with your student.
That's a thoughtful answer. It's a great answer. I know. And I was just playing around when you said you weren't an expert, but I mean, you've been seeing this for so many years, and I've seen the posts where parents pose the question, my child's dream school is going to cost us an extra $30,000 a year. And is that something that we need to do? And I think
one of the most difficult threads we see every year, and someone just posted it last week. It happens every year. Parents will go in and say, my kid got into their dream schools. Your kid has done the work, applied for 4 years, looked forward to this, and now they're accepted, but we can't afford it. And then hundreds and hundreds of parents come in and say, oh, that happened to us too. So as a parent, it's super important to try and avoid that outcome, because you can get a good sense. Some colleges will give you what's called a pre-read. You can give them your financials and they will tell you, we're going to give you maybe not the dollar amount, but you could expect from us between $10,000 and $12,000 or $15,000. And from that, you'll know whether we're dealing with something that's magical thinking or whether something your family can afford.
And I think for the parents who are earlier on in this process and the merit aid piece of understanding merit, I think Jeff
Levy.
Jeff Levy. Any of you can look him up. And I had Jeff on once, and he's great. Jeff is so knowledgeable when it comes to the financial aspects of college. And I think looking at merits, there's Jeff, and then
Ron Lieber.
Yeah, then Ron Lieber.
Ron Lieber comes into our group. We have both Ron Lieber and Jeff Levy come in and talk to our parents and walk them through every piece about the merit aid. It's a complicated thing. There's a lot of data, but if you don't look at the data, you could be really misled. It's super important to.
Absolutely. And those are two great people. And I know Grown and Flown. So I'll finish my question in a second, but how do people get access to Ron Lieber and Jeff Levy?
They join our membership, and everyone can join for 3 weeks for free and just try it out and see if it works for your family. There is a cost to it because we pay all our experts, because these are people for whom, many decades of experience, you pay people for their knowledge and experience. But we try and keep it a really, really manageable amount of money. We could put a link below here if you want, that people can use to join. So everyone can try for 3 weeks, which will get you 3 live sessions where you can do Q&A with the experts and see if this is a good fit for your family. College counselors in high schools are usually very, very good, but many of them are overwhelmed. They just have too many students and private college counselors, again, are also super good, but they're unaffordable for the vast majority of families. So we have tried to create something in between where you get to work with some of these really, really well-known college counselors, but you do it in a group setting, so it becomes affordable.
So there's the financial piece, but then my understanding is you also deal with all aspects of the college admission process.
Creating a college list, applying early. Allison, do you know Allison Slater-Tate? She does a great session on rolling admission and the advantage sometimes to picking a rolling admission, picking classes during junior and senior year with your application in mind. We do a session where we walk people through the Common App and places that students can get tripped up and what some of the confusing things might mean. So we cover the entire process of college admissions.
Yeah, that's great. I'll include a link in the show notes.
Great.
And I'm a big fan of the admissions group, and the people who are contributing, they really are so valuable, and it's so confusing, and they're people I trust. And I think that's one of the other parts. It's like, we've known each other a long time. I've known Grown and Flown, and like there's certain people who are like good people. Not that they're bad people. It sounds, there's certain people who have their hearts in the right place and they're mission oriented, and they want people to get the outcome that's going to align with what's going to provide the best situation for them, right?
The theme of our group is sort of threefold. One is, let's take the temperature down with knowledge. This is about not getting anxious, not getting scared, sharing factual information. Second thing is, one of our experts, Stephanie Mead, talks about we go from the kid to the college, not the college to the kid. So you don't pick 10 colleges and try and shoehorn your kid into them and see if they could commit. You look at your kid and figure out what are 10 colleges where my child will thrive. So we're going that direction always. And the third thing is that we can all learn from each other. We can learn from the experts, we can learn from each other. So often in every aspect of parenting, we don't know what we don't know, particularly with our eldest. We really don't know what we don't know. So we find that one of the things parents love about the membership is that they listen to the questions other parents are asking that they didn't even know to ask and that they needed to know.
Yeah. So it's a great place to check out. And I love what you're doing. The value piece, I just wanted to finish that thought of and this is what I tell people, I'm very flip. If there's a state school and there's an out-of-state school and that student doesn't have like a really compelling reason other than wanting to be out of state or wanting to have that experience, for that extra $30,000 a year, and when I'm basing that on is after you get your financial aid letter, when you're assessing, because you were referencing something that's very important is when a student looks at the price of college and they look at the sticker price, the majority of students are not paying that sticker price. So to rule a school out without understanding what someone from a similar background will pay is short-sighted. So you really want to understand that. What I'm talking about, it's the decision. It's April. I've got my financial aid offers, and I know that in-state, let's say I'm not getting any money, and I know that I'm going to get my out-of-states. I had a conversation with someone the other day about this, and I live in Illinois. We have great schools in Illinois, and for me, knowing what Frank Bruni says and the data with where you go is not who you'll be, knowing Denise Pope with Challenge Success, talking to Jenny Wallace and I'm not trying to name drop. These are the people in our field who are constantly sharing this, that the longitudinal studies show that it's not the school that's going to make the difference in your child's success story, right? And if you want to have debt, that's fine. And there's debt that's manageable, absolutely. But especially if you have a kid who's going to grad school, I am like, go the least expensive route. And even if you go to a school that is less competitive, you most likely will have more research opportunities early on, more access to the faculty and staff, and then honors programs.
Yeah, those are wonderful.
Honors programs, I think, are the best hack when it comes to more affordable schools. If you're part of the honors program, they recruit students from all over. You get access to classes early. Sometimes you get access to the best. And then the community college piece. What do you feel about community colleges?
Oh, huge fan. Absolutely huge fan. Because again, so many kids are spending those first couple of years exploring.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing. They don't need to be at their 4-year college. One of the most common things we see in why kids struggle freshman year in college, I don't know if you see the same thing, it's the time management piece.
Yeah.
They can do the work. They just don't have the time management skills yet. And community college is a great place to learn those skills. The stakes are a little bit lower. The pressure is a little bit less. Get your feet on the ground, get some maturity, get some time management skills, get some good grades, and then wind up where you need to graduate.
Yeah. I think that time management piece, I'd love to jump on. Well, I'll figure it out with, I think just one of the things, we were also talking about ways that I can help support Grown and Flown as well. And that checklist, the transition checklist of when a student goes to college, I think every student needs to identify where is the academic resource center, what is the study skills classes that are available, what time management classes are available. Because if you stink it up your first semester, or you're in for like a month, and all of a sudden you have this heavy workload of intense classes, and you're a kid who's always done really well, and all of a sudden you're struggling, well, chances are it's because you've never really had to study and manage your time, because you're smart and you can get through it. And then that's what derails so many students.
And also there's so much structure in our homes and in our lives. So, the kids are used to doing the whole, 8 to 3 school piece, and the after school activities, dinner gets put on the table, the house gets quiet, everybody studies, lights go out, sleep, and suddenly that structure is gone. And that also really, really compounds the time management piece, that we've created the structure, as it should be. And once we take that scaffolding away, the kids can't always do it themselves.
Yeah. And then there's situations like, I was recently diagnosed with ADHD last year.
Oh.
I knew I had it. Like it's not a mystery, but I went through the process, and it was I was super, it was very clear. And what I find is so many students can fly under the radar. Now we're better at assessing, but also that idea of being open, and you mentioned this with the mental health piece, of being open to, if you're not getting the same outcomes and you're doing the same things, talk to the people who can help you to figure out what the issue is. And it might be that there might be something beyond just being disciplined and having time management challenges. I'm sure you find that a lot.
All the time.
You find that a lot? Where
We do. So you mentioned that one of the things we can do for the kids when they're starting out is keep them aware of all the resources available to them, academic, mental health, physical health, all those sorts of things. When we drop we give the checklist that you're alluding to is not a checklist of things to buy, because there's a million of those.
Yeah.
We did a checklist of things to do. So, and some of them are, make sure your kid has in their phone, whatever 24-hour health services are available, because at the moment at which someone has, needs some stitches, it's going to be 2 a.m. And now we don't need to be finding that phone number. We need it already in the phone. So, getting your kid prepared with knowing what some of those support things are at the school, whether they're mental health, whether they're academic, is a super good way to help.
That'd be cool. Like we could do like a checklist of things where I could share some of my checklist items and you all can share yours.
Yeah.
And because I think just there's so many that I want to share during this right now, from, the FERPA and HIPAA waivers to having a mental health transition plan where you have, if you have a child who's had any sort of therapy, having someone in the community or seeing what are the laws regarding having virtual sessions over in a different state. Sometimes that could be impacted based on licenses.
And if they need any sort of academic support, if they've had any sort of extra time or anything in their previous educational institution, they need to know where the people are who can help them with that transition as well before they wind up with any sort of academic stress.
I had got these books here. I got all these books. This one I talked to Elizabeth Hamlet.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Elizabeth's great when it comes
Fantastic.
to students with disabilities and being able to maneuver. So Grown Flown has so much, and Lisa and Mary Dell are so wonderful and have been such incredible nurturers of this community. And I know your 900 writers and your editorial staff, because it really has taken a village. When it comes to some of the experts that you refer to, can you just, I know you're going to leave some people out, but for other people who are kind of new to this space, who just want to hear some names and understand some of those areas of expertise, can you, off the top of your head, just throw out a bunch?
I can do some, yes. I know you had Lisa DeMore on. Any issues around conflict and concerns about mental health. Two of her books focused on girls. Her most recent book focused on boys and girls, but she also has tons of content on her website. So you don't have to buy the book. Buy the books if you want. They're fantastic. But her website is full of, she just did one this morning, which was, how do you know when to worry? She did like 90 seconds on what are the red flags. Teenagers' emotions go up and down and up and down. When do you hit the concern level? So that kinds of really practical parenting advice. Jenny Wallace, as you mentioned, her book is absolutely fantastic. There's the Mattering Movement. You can find her website also, and lots of information there. Upside down. Cara Natterson and Vanessa Bennett, Kroll Bennett, have just done a book on adolescence and the awkwardness of puberty. And their book is absolutely fantastic around everything having to do with the changes that go on with your kid from 13 to 23 and how you can be helpful and supportive and in some of the most difficult conversations that we have to go through with our kids as they're becoming adults from being our children. Frank Bruni's book, Out of This World, it's still, the other one is Jeff Salingo's book, Who Gets In and Why. You really reading Jeff's book. And again, all of these people have so much content on their website. If you're a book lover, buy the books. If you're not a book lover, their websites are full of incredible content. Jeff's content talks a lot about how whether your kid gets in and out to a college or not has a lot to do with the college and not your kid. Colleges have what they need and what they want and what they're looking for. And whether it's your kid or not, it has nothing to do with you. And it's a really, really, really helpful book. So those were some, and we mentioned Ron Lieber, both his column in the Times, where he often talks about financial aid in depth, and his book about paying for college, which is excellent and gives parents a lot of guidance around narrative. Those are all great options.
Yeah. And you also have a book.
We do.
Yeah. You don't want to, your book.
No, our book, I love our book too. Our book is about different aspects of making that transition. It's sort of, our book covers sort of 12th grade to freshman year in college, and a lot of the things your kid is going to go through and a lot of the things you're going to go through. But again, like all of the people I've just mentioned, you can find a lot of that content also on our website if you prefer to do that.
Yeah. So Grown Flown.
And your book, that's what, so these were the books for adults. But the one we do honestly, we share this book on every graduation gift list, on every suggestion about what should I get my kid for graduation. It's your book. The Naked Roommate is a classic.
Well, thank you for that. I am grateful. I 100%, I wasn't even thinking of my own, which is really funny. I was more thinking of yours. And all those people you mentioned are great. They're wonderful. I think for someone who wants to find community and wants to find people, Grown and Flown can really give you that starting point. And in addition to all those other experts, you'll find the expert parents who have been there and done it. Some who have been members of the community since the beginning for 10 plus years. So they've seen it. And, there's people who contribute who know what they're talking about, having lived it and experienced it. So I really encourage everyone to do this. Now, when you go to Facebook, you see the big Grown and Flown that has like almost 1 million people following, but then there's the group. Can you explain the difference?
So one's a page where we publish information, and we publish content that's on our website, and we publish, things from around the web that we think will be interesting to people. So that's a Facebook page. The other is a Facebook group. So the Facebook page is just called Grown and Flown, and the Facebook group is called Grown and Flown Parents. The group isn't us posting. It's the 280,000 parents posting, and that's where the conversation really happens.
Great. And then the other area is the Grown and Flown admissions program.
Exactly. And that you have to sign up for, and you have 3 to 4 live sessions a month with experts on different topics. And you can also ask your questions in that group. The difference between that group is that only experts will answer your questions there. In the larger group, you have 280,000 parents who all have their own views on college admissions. And it's a mix.
Right. So I encourage everyone to check out all those resources. There's also an Instagram feed or Instagram, which is huge, hundreds of thousands of people. Are there any other resources, any other places?
Those are the best places to go. You and I could put the links here for all those.
Yeah. And I'll include all this in the show notes. And Lisa, if there's anything else you want to include, I will certainly do that as well. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap up?
I guess the only thing you and I talked about, the going to college piece, and we touched on this a little bit. It's really important. It's really painful for us when our kids leave. We love our kids love us. We know this is a change that's going to impact our lives and their lives forever. And we know something is never coming back. So there is something that's happened. There's great things about having young adult children, but there's a piece that now is going to end. And I think we manage this best when we realize that the new relationship is going to have highlights that this one didn't have. We're just going into a different stage. And when we realize it's not like when we left, I don't know about you, but when I left for college, I talked to my parents once a week. And I'm not joking when I say that half of that conversation was my father telling me how expensive the long distance phone call was. We literally spent half of the call talking about how expensive the call was. We don't live in that world. Your kid's going to text you so many times. Some days you're going to think, oh my God, go to class, stop. So there's a closeness that we're able to keep, and a way that we're able to, a non-obtrusive way that we're able to stay in each other's lives. And I'm glad I'm saying this to a father whose kid is going to go away for college soon. We stay in each other's day-to-day lives in a way that we never did. And it may simply be, I have 3 boys. They would take a picture of their food, because food, boys, big thing. And they would send me what they ate. That is how they were like, in the way that on the playground, they run back and touch you when they're 2 years old and then they run off and play again. Sending your mom a picture of your lunch when you're a college freshman is like touching your mom's knee and then going back into the playground. It's just making that connection. And we are so fortunate that we are here in this moment, and we can do that, and our kids can do that, and we can stay close without controlling their lives, without, being an overly intrusive force in their lives. So I just try and remind parents, don't think about your freshman experience when you think about your kid going away. This will not be like that.
Yeah, you painted such a beautiful picture. Yeah. And I love all the warm feelings at the picture of whatever's on that plate, the chicken fingers and fries and applesauce or whatever it is. But then there's the other part of me saying, oh, what Lisa's saying is so true. And these parents need to have a baseline of what's normal. so that and Lisa D'Amour says this, that a steady parent is so important, because if we're steady, then our kids will realize there isn't a lot we need to be worried about. We're going to be okay. But to be steady, we need to understand, and parents need to understand. And that's why I'm so grateful for you, and also the relationship that I have with so many people who listen to the podcast and send me messages and all of that, because we share the same goal of how do we help parents to be steady forces so they can get comfortable with all these uncomfortable changes and be supported. And you have been, an example for me, what you all have done. And I'm excited now to continue to do that and build. I think that's the collaborative piece. I think that's where I'm like, there are good people. It's like the collaborative spirit, and all the people you mentioned are all people who are like, oh, wow, like everybody needs to know. And we all can share. And if we share the same thing and we say it in a different way or we repeat it, it doesn't take away from anything. Like, these are things that everyone needs to know, and more so than ever before. So, Lisa, thank you for what you do.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. This was so much fun today.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, we'll continue the conversation, and anyone who has questions, reach out to me or Lisa. We'll give you all the good stuff in the show notes, and I'll put it to be continued, because, we'll keep talking. We never stop.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Lisa.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great to see you.